What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Of course, you know it's your boy B Hot Radio. Shout in. Hey, man, I got a friend and family member to the show stepping off in the building. Antwon Alsobrook, founder and owner of A2D. What's good with it, boss?
Hey, what's going on, B? I appreciate it, man, having me here.
I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to pull up on me and break down some historical stuff that you got going on around here, man. Now, for those who don't know, can you break down what A2D is?
Okay. So A2D is a company I started back in 2005 with my wife.
Okay.
The name is A, the number 2, D. Now, interesting in that the official name of it is analog to digital, but the unofficial name is Antwon Alsobrook Design.
Okay.
Which is the company I started when I was still in corporate America called AA Design LLC. So my wife actually came up with the logo of it, which has the name and, of course, the logo. But it comes from when I was working with CH2M Hill. I looked at how do I create a legacy company, but at the same time has my DNA in it.
Exactly.
So you look at CH2M Hill, which is a large engineering firm, it had the last initials of the last name of all the founders. So with A2D, it has my name in it from that point. But also the design of it allows me to define what it is.
Okay.
Versus AA Design, for example, it put me in a pigeonhole of being a design company.
That's
with
right.
A2D, I have to define it.
Exactly.
Which makes it agnostic.
So what kind of work do you do? If somebody's walking down the street and they see a A2D van riding down the street, what's really going on here, Antwon?
Not a problem. So A2D is the nation's only Black-owned broadband utility.
Okay.
What that means is we actually own and are deploying our own fiber network in various cities. Particularly here in Clayton County, we've purchased a 100-mile network back in August and are now preparing to do fiber to the home to the citizens of Clayton County.
So for those who don't understand what fiber is and how it interacts with their regular lives as a utility, can you break that down?
Okay. So the best analogy I like to use is take a road or street, okay? Fiber is the digital road, whereas no different than phone, which would be the phone company, and cable, coaxial, which would be the cable company. Fiber is just a faster infrastructure, where phone and cable are delivering content over the speed of sound. Fiber is doing it over the speed of light.
Okay.
So you have fiber infrastructure has much more capacity, and it's going to be around for 50 plus years, whereas phone and coax has already hit its limits of capability. So we're putting in an infrastructure that's ready for the future, not just backwards into where we are now.
Now, Antwon, I already know the story, but as a young man growing up in Atlanta, what was it that made you decide to get into fiber?
That is a long story. So, all right. My story really starts with being, of course, in DeKalb County, trying to fit in with one side of me trying to be creative, and the other side just trying to make my way in the East Side.
Okay.
You know, how do I affiliate with my surrounding neighborhood? I grew up off of McAfee, went to Columbia High School, class of '93. And during that time, you had to deal with, of course, the intrusion of gangs. You had to deal with poverty. Crack was on the streets. You know, how do you, become someone successful when everyone around you is either doing very well or doing absolutely the bottom piece?
Yeah.
So in that, I tried to stand 1 foot in the streets, 1 foot out in education, and really caught myself in a trap box in that by trying to be out in the streets, I got myself in trouble while also still trying to be in school. I was torn between two worlds. Ultimately, what it came down to is I was able to get out of trouble, thankfully, gave myself over to the Lord, and started really looking at myself to say, okay, Antwon, what is your true skill? And what I realized is my skill is I'm able to visualize things and reverse engineer it from a design standpoint.
Yeah.
So that then branched off to say, okay, what do you like to do? Well, my daughter recently looked at my baby book and found out that my first words was, "Where my car?" Okay? What that means is I loved cars. Everything I did was drawing cars.
Yeah.
I look at Auto Spies, for example, to see what the latest cars.
Yeah.
Well, my design capability was based off of me drawing cars. And my sense of engineering came from doing that. Well, the cars was just the end product I can see. What I realized is to be able to visualize the end product and say, what are all the different parts and pieces of it? So design and drawing is what I saw. So as I grew into getting into engineering, I started being able to understand my capability is, if there's a problem, how do I reverse engineer it and how do I come to that point? So to fast forward to how did I get into fiber, I started off in infrastructure engineering and realized that I have two choices. Either A, I can continue to be in corporate America, hit a glass ceiling, or I can go entrepreneur. Well, in order to do entrepreneur in engineering, which you're basically chasing what I call the project number, you're doing just serial engineering and construction, how can I get into an industry where I can take my skill set and create an asset, an infrastructure asset that's able to generate revenue without me having to go through 20 years of school?
Yeah.
And that's when I learned about technology and telecom.
Yeah.
In telecom, the same skills that I was having in engineering, it's the same skills you need to do telecom. So whereas in utility engineering, to do water lines, you have to be a professional engineer. In fiber infrastructure, you do not. So I can do the design of a fiber network the same way I would do it with the water line, but the key difference is that fiber network will continue to increase in capability and need. That water line is fixed based on the proportion of number of houses or buildings that's connected to it. On the fiber side, if I strategically place myself, I can be in position to own that fiber line, whereas the water line, it goes to the utility, the municipality. So I said, okay, how can I take my skill set and position myself where I can have a revenue producing asset, which would be the fiber, versus just doing engineering and chasing the project number. And that's how I got into telecom.
With infrastructure engineering, as a young man, how did you find yourself getting into that?
Okay, so after I got out of trouble, my mom was working at the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, which was right down the street here. And when I got that job at the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, I was there as the mailroom clerk, and I was able to, be amongst a lot of the heavyweights in industry here. And one day I was happened to setting up a conference room, and a representative of a very large engineering firm was like, hey, I see how you got your designs and stuff laid out for this conference for our meeting. Won't you look at engineering? I was like, okay, that's cool, but that's way too far. So I was able to keep going, and I got into an engineering school, and while I was there, I joined the National Society of Black Engineers. And while I was at NASB, I thought about what the guy said. He was like, hey, you need to really go into a career of engineering, but how can I get into the world of engineering as a student? Well, a good friend of mine was in NASB. He was like, hey, Antwon, I got a job for a small engineering firm. I'm looking at moving out of my apartment. I need a roommate. If I get your job there, would you roommate with me? It's like, okay. Okay, that's fine. So he set up an interview with a small engineering firm. I'm still in school. I was able to go, knocked it out the park, and got a job at a small engineering firm. As soon as I got the job, he decided to go get engaged and get married. So, I'm having to sit there in that firm. But what it allowed me to do was, being a part of that small engineering firm, is I had to do everything from being a gopher, meaning do paperwork, doing CAD, doing construction management, sitting in with the customers, taking notes. The whole gamut of how do you do engineering from end and nuts, I had to do it, as well as understanding the fundamental of business. So I would go in early, try to copy as much stuff as I possibly can, go to school, come back, because I have my own office. Now I'm 21 years old. Had my own office, a company credit card, and a company vehicle while I'm going to school doing engineering. And I was able to learn as much as I could.
Exactly. During your time in corporate, what was that like, and what was it that made you say, you know what was that final straw that said, Antwon, you need to get up out of here?
Well, there's three things that happened in my life. So when I was working for the small engineering firm, that's when I met my wife, Margaret. And I was working on at the time a product where, and understand this is before the internet as we know it today. This was before a lot of the advanced graphics that we have, where the engineering firm was trying to provide a better way to train employees of the various manufacturing facilities that they were doing work for.
Yeah.
So I was put on a team because I knew how to do 3D design in CAD to help, and then I had to learn how to do web page scripting to create an interactive operations and maintenance manual, O&M manual. And going through that, the president of the company promised I was going to get a big raise. Now here I'm freshly married, I'm in school, we're in an apartment, we want to get a house, and I'm thinking I'm going to get this big raise. So I put in extra time, was able to put this product together, went and helped presented it to Kimberly Clark. That project turned into a multi-million-dollar effort. So I'm thinking, yay, I'm going to get a big raise.
Exactly.
Okay, now at the time I was making $11 an hour.
Ooh.
So my wife, she was making $13 an hour. She was a graduate and so forth.
Yeah.
And we were getting ready to buy our first house. Okay? And I'm thinking I'm going to, get to at least $20 an hour, at least something like this. Well, I got a 50 cents raise.
Oh, come on now.
You see what I'm going?
I done been there.
Right.
I done
So
seen that.
I hit that glass ceiling of underappreciation.
Yeah.
Hey, I want you to perform, knock it out the park, do what, other people would do, but you're not going to get the benefit. So instead of staying in that, turned to my wife, she's like, hey, I will help you get your resume out. So we was able to shop my resume, and I was able to get a job with C.H. Schumm Hill.
Okay.
Now, I get to C.H. Schumm Hill. Got a good raise. We got our house. Everything was going well. Well, in being in C.H. Schumm Hill, it's a multi-billion-dollar engineering firm. Now I'm caught in a situation where I'm outperforming all the other designers quickly because I'm able to reverse engineer.
Yeah.
But now I'm having to deal with that racism of, hey, we can't let you get to a certain level. So although I was outperforming, I was being, kept away from the large assignments, and I was kept in the back.
Yeah.
But instead of just, saying, hey, look, let me do my time, I came in early, got as much information as I could to really understand how the company was doing business, because I realized that I'm going to have to go into the world of entrepreneurship in order to really make it way. And what really sealed the deal was I was sitting down talking with my immediate supervisor, who was my mentor, and I asked her, I was like, hey, look, you have a nice corner office. At this time is over at Perimeter Mall, overlooking the city, like this right here.
Yeah.
What would it take for me to have that office? And she was like, look, on your educational track, it's going to take you about 15 years. If you work hard, you get your PE's license. And I was like, okay, well, how much money would I make? You make about $80,000. I was like, no. I need to start heading down a different path.
Yeah.
So, but I couldn't just jump ship. I started AA Design, and I began my entrepreneur's track while I continued to work at C.H. Schumm Hill absorbing. Because I realized you got your, dealing with customers. I got my AA Design card here. I got my C.H. Schumm card here. Well, when I put that C.H. Schumm Hill card down, I get the full weight of that billion-dollar company. When I put that AA Design card down, well, it's just me.
Yeah.
So I had to build up that business and that tenure and that portfolio to make that mean something. So I held on to that C.H. Schumm card until basically they had to let me go.
Yeah.
And that ties into how do I really have to be out there in 2005. And, everybody knows about what happened in 2008. In the engineering world, the recession happened way earlier.
Yeah.
And we didn't all realize it because in the engineering world, you're doing multi-$100+ million projects. Well, when that financing seized up, I found myself working not only on engineering projects, but actually having to go out in the field and do construction management. And I was always trying to chase with the different projects and start realizing that I'm starting to get less and less project opportunities. But I didn't realize what was happening.
Yeah.
And eventually going into 2005, had started, got A2D really going, had some customers. I wound up being laid off. So in 2005, I'm sitting there. I got A2D now going. I got a couple of customers. My corporate job is looking like it's about to go down the hill. My wife is at home with our first daughter. I got to make it or break it because getting another job in engineering, nobody's answering my phone calls. So that's when I had to really make a full burn A2D.
Okay, so now, who were some of the first clients that you had with A2D, and what were you doing when you were just getting the business off the ground?
Okay, so A2D started off as providing utility infrastructure design for real estate developers. So if I'm doing water lines, sewer lines for a city, the same thing has to happen for a private developer who's doing a gated community. And typically what they do is they would do the design where they have a GC come in and do the build, and they would give it off to a municipality. Well, I was able to do that and cut the costs.
Okay.
So I would do the design, and then I would have PEs, professional engineers, who would stamp it for me. So let's say, for example, you got development. The engineering may be about $50,000. Instead of me doing all 50, I would do maybe 25 of it. And then the PE would do the other 25 of it.
Yeah.
So I had clients that were, smaller developers who didn't have the budget for the big stuff. I would bring on and I would do those projects.
Okay.
Now, simultaneously, and this is when I was with C.H. Storm Hill, I had got into the world of technology. And in dealing with technology, you meet different types of entrepreneurs. And one day I had this idea, and this dates me back here, called Econ, the Electronic Concession Ordering Network. So it's based off the concept of you have the Palm Pilots back in the day.
That's right.
Before the smartphones.
Yeah.
And you're at an event, and you want to order a concession without going to wait in line. So my idea was stand up a wireless network, use that Palm Pilot, and people can order their concession and either go pick it up when it's ready or have somebody deliver it.
Yeah.
So I needed someone who understood networks and how it connect, because I was doing the design of the actual Palm Pilot and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I ran into a guy who had a company that did networks for municipalities. So this is around 2003.
Okay.
Okay. So ran into him and I say, hey, look, you're doing business. How can I learn about business? He was like, hey, look, like you seem like you got talent, but I can't come to where you are. If you come to where I am and you're in the room, I'll teach you whatever you want to know. So I was like, okay, I want to be able to be in business. Bet. I'm at C.H. Tomb Hill up in Perimeter Mall. His office in Noonan, Georgia. So every day I would get up, take my 1991 Acura Legend, drive to work early, get off, drive all the way down to Noonan to spend several hours just soaking up in the room, understanding about technology, understanding about networks, and then drive home. I did that, put over 100,000 miles on my car in 2 years, just being in the room.
Yeah.
Now that paved off when I got laid off from C.H. Tomb Hill, I had enough experience working with them, doing infrastructure, understanding development, to start now looking at, okay, I'm doing design of infrastructure, but what about this telecom over here? And in working with developers, I started noticing I'm doing the design of the water, doing the design of the sewer, I'm doing the design of the electrical. What's happening with the telecom? Well, developers were paying the cable companies and the phone companies to put in infrastructure, and then they were just able to go walk away with it and make the money. So I was like, well, what if I design a network and I convince the developer to put that money towards a partnership, and then I can convince the telecom companies to connect to it, no different than if you have an apartment complex, you have a master meter for water, and then they charge the tenants water, so forth. I can do the same thing for telecom. So I sat down and created a design, what I call Teletoll, where if I put a switch at the beginning of the subdivision, and I run lines to each one of the units, and I have the cable company and phone company plug into it, I can charge them to sell services no different than I could charge water and so forth. So put together design, and I started presenting it in front of our developers. So from 2005 to 2007, I was continuing to doing my design of infrastructure while I was presenting the telecom design also. So in 2007, I ran across a young guy by the name of Keith Quarles, and he was developing a mixed-use development off of Camp Creek Parkway, Butner Road, called the Camp Creek Village.
I know what you're talking about.
He was also doing a hotel over by the airport, and I presented my model. It was like, sounds good, let's take a chance. And he gave me my first contract doing that. So we were off to the races in 2007, and I started building out a network on his development. As I started developing that network, I started getting the attention of other developers. So H.J. Russell, Integral Group, a lot of developers start seeing what we're doing, and they came over and start looking at it. It's like, hey, we want the same thing. So I was up on the contract with a lot of the developments here in Atlanta. We were actually preparing to provide the network in there. So by the time 2008 come, I have a network in Camp Creek Village. Now understand, we were delivering fiber to the townhome, fiber to the commercial suite in 2008. The average connection was 100 meg. Most homes within the area were hoping to get 10 meg. We were doing 10 times the speed at a lower price in 2008.
Yeah.
So we were starting to get a lot of attention, and most important, we were sharing that revenue with the developers. So they had a financial incentive. I get long-term revenue, we get long-term revenue. And we increasing the value of the property, which means their development was increasing just from the cost of ownership, and as far as the resale value, it was higher because it had the technology.
Exactly.
So we were completely way ahead of the standard.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of things going, had ramped up, had staff, we was doing these development, everything was going well until January 2009. January 2009, I had just paid all of my vendors, all of my staff, about $500,000 out. But my invoice from the developers was starting to come in slow. So one day I went in, it's like the 1st of January, talked to Keith, like, hey Keith, what's going on? It's like, here's the problem. The bank has told us you're one of 25 properties we're gonna foreclose on. So they said it met with the lawyers. The banks provide them a stack of paper about that much. The lawyer took out a ruler, put it up. He said each inch represents $100,000.
Oh, hell no.
And you're not going to be able to get that money. So he was like, Antwon, I know I owe you a lot of money, but we're getting ready to go bankrupt. And all of those other contracts you have, they're probably either going to be put on hold or they're going to be going out of business too. So January of 2009, I'm sitting there, can't get in a job at corporate America because I'd already been laid off in 2005. They're not hiring.
Yeah.
All of my developer clients are now starting to go bankrupt. My model is based off of being able to do infrastructure in private developments. And, by the way, I didn't graduate college, so I don't have a college degree. So all of these things were pressing on me in that, how do I survive? How do I continue to go?
Okay, so you're telling me in a matter of moments you went from a successful entrepreneur to a man trying to survive in America, okay? Yes. Take me through your mental state of mind during that time when you saw the rug being snatched off from up under you and you realized that, okay, yes, the rug has been snatched off from up under me, but now I have to literally figure out how to survive with nothing.
Okay. So in 2006, I was laid off from Seastrom Hill, hoping that business would kick off with A2D, okay? It didn't come through as I wanted to in 2005. So going into 2006, January 2006, my wife and I lost our first home, okay? So we were foreclosed on.
Yeah.
And that was one of those moments where, as a man, my whole aspect of being a provider, protector was completely on the table there.
I'd have been there.
And I turned to my wife, and we called the day it foreclosed because we didn't understand. We didn't know who to talk to. And we called the bank to say, okay, y'all foreclosed on the house, now what? It was like, well, are you still in the house? It was like, yes. You need to leave because we'll have the sheriff out there tomorrow. That's how shell-shocked we were at the time. And of course, you got different aspects of what we probably could have done, hindsight, but the reality is my identity, who I was, what I had built, all those things were completely wiped away. And it was really down to my wife, our daughter, and what we're going to be. So we were able to scramble, get everything moved out in time, and then we moved in temporarily with a friend of ours who had a condo. We was able to move into their open available condo. We stayed there for 6 months. After that 6 months ended, we had to move in with my mom and my dad and move into the basement. Now, understand during that time, my wife now is pregnant with our second child. Okay.
Family's still growing.
All right, family's still growing. We move in with my parents. We moved in, I believe, August of 2006. Okay. The next month, my mom comes down with breast cancer. So when you look at God's timing, you have a situation where you lost all that. However, you being in that house allows you to do two things. Number one, recalibrate.
Yeah.
Don't let depression kick in.
Yeah.
Because not only you got your family, as far as your wife and kids, you also got your mother and your father.
Yeah.
That need you. So, and then second thing is, hey, look, all is not going to end. You have faith. So long as you get up every day, you try hard, things will work out.
That's easier said than done, sir. You're at home with your mama and daddy. You just found out your mama got breast cancer. You got another baby on the way. You already got one baby here, and you don't have a job and no income, sir.
You're correct.
How did you even... How many days did you find yourself laying in the bed looking at the ceiling saying, okay, God, when is this going to be over?
It was every day. But what I told myself and what I did is, no one is going to wake up before me. Nobody's going to bed before me. If you see me, I'm working.
That's right.
I'm going to send out every proposal I possibly can. I'm going to do everything that's necessary to present that I am trying. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to, take up drinking. I'm not going to take up smoking. I'm not going to be abusive. I'm going to look at myself and say, okay, where did I fail and what calibration did I need to do in order to be successful? And I set a plan. And I said, okay, my goal is over the next year is we're going to get ourselves together and I'm going to keep hitting this entrepreneurship until it happens. Fortunately, I had a project on the table that we were just having to go through the financing and all that stuff to get it done. So a year later, we was able to finally close. That gave me enough money in order to get a rental home and move out.
Okay.
By the time we move out, my mom was in recession.
Awesome.
So all that timing came in. Okay. So fast forward back to 2009. We're still in that rental house. Everything's doing well. Okay. Until January hit. Now, going from in January, they have now a cascading event. I have over $500,000 I owe my vendors. I had to lay off all my employees. And now I'm starting to get in the mail notices that the house that we're staying in is up for foreclosure. Okay? So you got all these different things that at play.
Okay, so now I have to ask you this. How much time had it been between you staying at your mama's house and this happening again?
Okay. So 2006, I'm at my mom's house. 2007, I move out of my mom's house. Okay. Along with, I got the contract dealing with the development. 2008, everything's rocking and rolling. I'm still in the rental house. 2009, going into January, I'm stiffed. Got to figure out how to make it happen. June 2009, the house is about ready to be foreclosed. The guy's about ready to kick us out. And this is the most pivotal where I am today really kicks in.
Okay. So
in June of 2009, we were down to our last penny. Okay. Barely able to keep anything on. I needed to apply for food stamps. Sitting in front of my computer, trying to log in, because we need food. Okay? Now, mind you, I have over $500,000 worth of telecom equipment, enough that I can wire the whole community I'm in.
Yeah.
But because I didn't have the money to do it, it's just sitting there. And because we're in a recession, nobody wants to buy it. So I have all this infrastructure, and now I'm sitting there trying to apply for benefits. Get ready to press submit. Cut. Comcast turns off my internet.
Oh, hell no.
All right? So now I can't apply for benefits. So what I do, it's like, okay, there's a library about a mile down. Let me walk my butt down there, go to the library.
Yeah.
Go to the library, sit in line for 2 hours just to get on a computer. I'm like, okay. Okay.
Getting out of hand. This is getting out of hand, God.
So finally was able to do the stuff on the computer, go home, and I sat down. I was like, hold on. I know all this infrastructure and technology. I'm in a situation in a bind. Something's up with this. So I sat down. I said, hey, God, what's really going on? I know too much about technology. I know too much about infrastructure. But why is my internet being cut off when I need it the most? My tax dollars, I spent a lot of money in taxes, and I can't even get to the Department of Family and Children Services to do some food stamps? Really? So I sat down and I prayed about it, and I came up with this concept called e-community. And e-community was based on the ideology. As long as the entity that sells you internet also owns the infrastructure, there will always be somebody who don't have access to what they need. Because unlike the roads and streets out there, if I need something, I can go outside and walk to where I need. In the digital world, I can't get what I need if I can't pay that $100 a month.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, during that time, everything that you needed, information, services, were becoming online, which means if I couldn't afford internet, how do I get what I need civically? Can't go to a facility anymore. I got to do it. So I was like, okay, there's a problem with this. So I sat down and I wrote a document, 2-page document called e-community, what my concept was. Shared it with a friend of mine, okay? Now, mind you, we're getting ready to get kicked out of our house. I can't afford to keep internet on, okay? Handed this document over to a friend of mine. That's it, just to vent, put it off my chest. 3 days later, get a phone call. This is a representative with the White House. We got your document. We want you to come up to the D.C. and present e-community to Dr. Susan Crawford, who is the special assistant for President Obama in the Broadband Infrastructure Division. I'm sitting here like, okay.
Excuse me?
Number one, that's fine, but what is that going to do for me?
Oh.
Number two, even if I wanted to go, how I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And if I can get there, where I'm going to stay, all these things were coming into play. So I was like, okay, God, you had me write a document. A friend of mine sent it up. I got to now go to D.C. to present something that I have no idea what they want, nor how it's going to help me in my current situation.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, God, you got me out of trouble. And I told you, if you get me out of that, you got me.
Yeah.
You helped me when we lost our home in 2006. You helped my mom. You're helping me now. I got to trust you. Put out a call. Hey, I need to go to D.C. If anybody can help me, help me. One friend got me a buddy pass. Another one had an aunt. Hey, you got a floor. As long as you're willing to sleep on the floor, cool. Another one, hey, I got some extra food, whatever I'm doing. Just make it up here.
Yeah.
So I was able to make it up to D.C. Got through security because my trouble, I thought that I was going to make it through Homeland Security, but was able to make it through that, which is great. And had a chance to present e-community to Dr. Crawford.
Yeah.
She was like, hey, love it. We're getting ready to do a $4.5 billion BTOP, Broadband Technology Opportunity Grant. E-community lines up with everything we're talking about.
My God.
I want you to submit an application. June 2009. Okay? We move out, move in with my sister in her basement. So from that point to March, we did a couple of applications. We were finally able to submit a successful application in March of 2010. September 2010, that application was awarded.
Okay.
You had over 1,200 applications for funding. 140 were selected. 1 was black. I wrote.
Oh my God.
$59 million.
Woo!
Federal government.
So that day of rejoicing, how did the family rejoice after that day? Just let me share in the celebration part of all of this, because I done been through too much struggle with you by now. Okay? And your wife had to believe in your ass. Okay? She done did a lot of fucking believing up until this point, and for it to come back to the tune of $59 million, I feel like that belief was worth it. So, I mean, take me through that.
So
Personally,
it was a joyous moment.
Mm-hmm.
However, it was scary in that that's not immediate money. That's number one. Number two, when I said from 2009 to 2010, there's a whole lot of stuff that happened in between that. I kind of just skipped through.
That's called hell. Okay.
Yes. Now, here's the most interesting thing. That community I did that network in,
Yeah.
I was able to negotiate and was able to get one of the townhomes to stay in going into December of 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent 6 months at my sister's house, and then I was able to get into one of the townhomes.
Yeah.
So from December 2009 to September 2010, we're staying in one of the townhomes. Well, leading up to September 2010, they had foreclosed on that portion. So we're sitting in limbo at this townhome.
Oh my God.
And we're talking about a $350,000 townhome.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
We're sitting there rent-free, hoping we don't get kicked out of that while we're submitting this application. So at the time of us getting an announcement in September, we had finally was able to negotiate with the new owners a lease, but we couldn't pay it. So when that came down, I was able to pivot to say, okay, we got the award. I have still that equipment that I had lost, still had that, kept that up. But I was able to then negotiate and get a loan from an investor based off the award in order to be able to mobilize. So going into October, we were able to pay our lease, able to staff up, get an office, and start building from that point. Because I had something that was tangible, had already proven that we can handle a lot of stress, and we had the discipline in order to carry it through. And we had a group of brothers that believed in us. So from a excitement standpoint, it was temperament by, you hear a doorbell, is that somebody trying to put us out?
Yeah.
So there was no room to be excited. And I just got you to 2010.
Okay, Antwon, so there's no room to be excited. First of all, you got a government contract, so we know that the government doesn't play.
No.
So what was that like, having to handle $59 million of the government's money?
Okay. So the way I wrote the grant, in order to do it, A2D was too small of an entity. So we were put together through the Minority Business Development Agency, MBDA. Hey, they wanted to provide a team, get a team of minority contractors to come together to go after this funding. So they brought in a company, in which I can't disclose who it is because of some litigation stuff, but they brought in a company, they had a big balance sheet, and they would be the recipient. A2D had the business case, the open access, the e-community, all the guts to implement that. So we were the sub-recipient / general project management contract. I wrote it where A2D would get a $9 million contract out of that, implemented. The grant recipient would be the fiduciary. And then the network itself would go to an authority, municipal authority, which comprised of the 8 counties in Alabama that would become part of the network point. So you had Macon County, Alabama with Tuskegee, you had Lowndes County, Dallas County with Selma, Wilcox, Escambia, Crenshaw, and Green County, a couple of counties along what we call the Black Belt, Southern Black Belt. So that was the structure. So the recipient would get the grant. We would have a subrecipient and contractor status, and the authority would get subrecipient. And we had a bunch of contractors up under that. So in order to get going, though, and this is why I said the money didn't come, we had to have a cash match, which was $26 million to go with it. So the government gives 80 cents, you got to have the 20 cents.
Yeah.
Now this is post-Madoff, post-recession.
Yeah.
And the government had a stipulation where the asset, they take first lien position, which means if you're trying to get a loan, that's out. If you're trying to get equity, well, the asset goes to the authority, which is a governmental body. So I'm having to take a second lien position behind an authority. That's an issue. We had investors who were willing to do it. However, after all the stipulations came to the table, they bowed out. So going into October, the investors that we thought were at play decided, nope, can't do it. So how do I get this project going? Well, one of the stipulations I saw is all of the time in engineering and business development that you put in putting together the grant, you can count that as what they call an in-kind contribution. In addition, if you have any equipment materials that's part of the network, you can count that as contribution. So it was like, okay, I still had all that equipment from Camp Creek.
Yeah.
All the design aspect we did, so I can account that. That attuned to about $750,000 in what we call in-kind.
Yeah.
That allowed us to start drawing down money.
Okay.
While we got investment funding and all that stuff lined up. So that enabled us to go from 2 people to 70 people within a 10-month period, having offices in 2 states.
Okay.
Building a network. So things were off to the races at that point. Until we start going into 2012. And you have the authority and the recipient making a determination that we don't want that A2D there. There's too much money on the table.
Yeah.
They need to go. So that began a level of infighting, and everything just basically imploded. We had to leave. The federal government, of course, was validating and seeing everything, but we couldn't stay in that without having to face extortion, all these other things.
Yeah.
So we wind up leaving and had to turn and sue the recipient. But we were able to leave that grant. Ultimately, the federal government shut it down, but we were able to leave intact with A, all of our intellectual property, B, all the relationships, C, our company, and D, our integrity. Now, understand, going into mid 2012, I had to lay off all of our employees, shut down the office in Alabama, walk away from all that stuff, shut down the office at Camp Creek, sell off stuff on Craigslist, the whole nine, and basically start all over again. But that fortitude, that business case was vetted through going through the grant process. So I had to answer the phone calls of Booz Allen, PricewaterhouseCoopers, who vetted the A2D business case to a point where it eventually became attractive to investors. So although we took a big loss, it put us up in a position to be here today.
Okay. Trial and tribulation after trial and tribulation. Do you ever get tired of that?
It's the tax. I'm a black man in America. It's the tax. These are the rules. You either are able to deal with it or you can't. There's no excuse. I have kids. I have a wife. I have a community. This is the world. It's not Disney.
You're damn right it ain't Disney.
It's not Disney. You're going to have challenges. When you're successful, you're going to have challenges. When you're not, you're going to have challenges.
That's right.
You have to lean to your morals. You have to lean to your faith, and you have to be able to see a future. See, growing up, a lot of the guys that I hung out with, even myself, we couldn't see past 21. So it was easy for us to do shenanigans. It was easy for us to go, be out there in the streets because I couldn't see past 21. And the reason why I couldn't see past 21 is because I didn't see anybody in the community that was successful past 21. All I saw was the dope guys, with the cars and so forth. So I want the same thing. They had the girls. I want the same thing. Live fast. I didn't see the professional. I didn't see any of that stuff. The fathers that were there, they were, blue collar, giving their all. So that didn't look fancy. So I had a short-term mindset. And then, of course, as I approached 21, 19, I get in trouble. Now everything hits the fan. What are you going to do? You going to keep living this street fantasy, or are you going to grow up? And once I decided to grow up, now I have to take accountability. And in taking accountability, you have to have a plan. And you got to be willing to be knocked down and get back up. So when you decide to be an entrepreneur, you're going to get knocked down. You're going to have to get back up. And it's going to be over and over again. And just because you make a lot of money, doesn't mean that it can be taken at any moment. Tax man can come and take it. Litigation can come and take it. You can do something stupid. You can form a habit. There's all kinds of things, all kinds of traps sitting there ready to take it from you. But you got to keep going at it.
Mental health, though, Antwon. I mean, mentally speaking, because these downs and these trials and tribulations that you speak of, they are a heavy tax to pay. And that is a heavy toll on a man's mind, man. So, I mean, what do you do to keep from going crazy?
Well, number one, I'm living for my children. They're my legacy. In order for me to handle all the weight, I had to first look at myself. I had to look at my parents. I had to reverse engineer who I am at the core.
Yeah.
What can I really handle? What has fed into me? What has been transferred to me just by genetics? What's been transferred over to me by spirit? What are the fundamentals of what makes me who I am? Stop trying to be someone else. What makes me me? Once I fully understood that, it didn't matter what the challenge is because I know how I'm going to react and how I respond. And now I'm able to go from there. So I understand, like I saw a statement by 50 Cent. He's like, hey, I don't get along with everybody because we don't laugh at the same jokes. That is a testament that I understand. Not everybody is going to get me, but I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be genuine. And I'm going to be able to handle whatever life throws at me. Because number one, I know what foundation I stand on. I know my family's history. I know what I've gone through. And there's nothing anybody can tell me that I can't make it through.
So what were the things that you did, though, to decompress during those times where you were obviously overheating?
Well, number one, I married my best friend.
That's always a plus.
All right. Who we got together when I didn't have anything. And she saw me, I saw her. And when you get with someone, when you're at your base fundamental, trust and intimacy is a result. Because it's not based off of what I have.
Exactly.
It's truly based on trust and intimacy. So the first thing I have to do is reaffirm that every day, which means I have to be willing to be vulnerable.
That's right.
Not some, crying. I'm talking about just true, intimate, vulnerable. Here are my thoughts.
Yeah.
Help me think through it. What are your thoughts? Help you think through it. To come to the right decision. Not trying to be right, from that point of view. I want to have the best decision. Sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes she's wrong. Regardless, I had to think through my emotions. And a lot of times what I've realized is for men, we have a problem with looking weak. For women, they have a problem with being in shame. So you have to understand those two dynamics when you come together in yin and yang and look at that perspective. And once you have that, there's nothing that you can't put on the table that together y'all can't work through.
Exactly.
So when I'm having that moment when I'm feeling anxious or I need somebody to talk, I go talk to her. All right? But of course, that comes second to me talking to God.
That's right.
You know, I got to go and talk to him to get my strength and understanding, my faith, because he gives me something that she can't. He can give me a vision. Then I have to go and talk to my wife to say, hey, look, what are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you feeling? To affirm that. And then that helps me then engage with the world.
That's scientific right there, and I love it.
Well, it's a breakdown understanding.
Yeah.
And that because I can't afford to make a decision that's half-cocked.
Come on now.
Based on emotions. I got too many people lining up, too many people that are trusting in me. So why do I approach life without really taking things into full prospect and consideration? You know, like I tell everybody every day, hey, look, my decision is based on the variable and information I have right now. And I'm not too proud to be wrong.
Come on.
So if I get new information and it makes me look wrong, fine. Let's move with the new information. Let's move forward. Now, that doesn't make me second guess my decision because the decision is what it is. But let's be right and move forward.
What was the biggest difference between $11 an hour Antwon and $1 million Antwon? The first $1 million Antwon. I ain't talking about the second and the third one. The first $1 million Antwon.
The first one was I wind up having the I am complex. Okay? If you take Jay-Z's lyric, Lost One, when he's talking about, I believe, his issue with Dame Dash. When you say, the greatest drug known to man is when I look in the mirror and say, there I am. That is a real complex, where you feel that you are the chosen one, and therefore you are able to walk on water, and you are it. Where you now start referring to yourself in the third person. When you start thinking that you have access to everything and everybody must bow down to you. And when you think about it, I was 37, 38 years old. Had my wife and 3 kids, had federal government contract, had offices in multiple states. I had assistants. I had whatever I wanted. Okay? And comes with that was this level of arrogance. I was the center of attention. You know, I'm dealing with federal, municipal, we're going everywhere, PR firms, the whole nine. And I felt like I was invincible. But when you looked at me, I was damn near 400 pounds. And I looked like I was just a walking piece of stress. But I had this level of ego that you couldn't tell me anything. So when God stripped everything away, I had to look at myself and realize I became what I constructed. And that's completely against what God wanted for me. So instead of being, you know, selfless, I was selfish. So I had to learn, and God had to humble me, how to be an effective servant leader. Someone who puts everyone else first, and then I benefit off of the accolades from their testimony, not me putting myself out there. Which is why it's been so hard for you to get me in here is I'm very careful not to try to get that accolades from what I've gone through. Hopefully whatever I'm saying now will, you know, touch someone, give that someone that inspiration, but in no way am I trying to profit off of that.
The first millionaire, Antwon, that lost everything and got it back, what was the difference between those two guys?
So the Antwon of 2012 was, say the Antwon of 2008 was right there at the cusp. The Antwon of 2012 had the world at his fingertip. The Antwon of 2023 leans on those two, and I've learned how to walk in plain sight without being visible.
Yeah.
I've learned how to understand to whom much is given, much is required. I learned how to cherish relationships and friendships and maneuver within that. I've learned how to help others instead of looking for people to, stroke my ego. I no longer need possessions to validate me. What I do is already difficult enough. I don't need to have clothes, cars, and all that stuff to try to paint this illusion that I'm successful.
Mm-hmm.
That would be put in the history books. Mm-hmm. I'm confident of that. But I don't need in order to have that now. Back then I did. 2012 I did. 2008 I did. Now I don't.
The money, Antwon, when you get the money and you want to help everybody and show all of the love, what did you learn about money management?
So, number one, we secured an investment in August of 2022. Okay? I don't have money in my account from that investment. That investment goes to infrastructure. I have a great job. As an entrepreneur, don't look like you got a whole bunch of money in the account. You have a great job. So build your life around what is the minimum amount of money per month that you need to be comfortable, not exuberant, comfortable. That if anything stops, you're able to maintain that
Exactly.
for X amount of time until you can recalibrate.
That's right.
So in doing that, the Antwon today, yes, on paper, looks like he's doing well. But as far as household, hey, I'm keeping everything very tight,
Yeah.
very comfortable. If the average person would roll up on me, I still drive right now my daughter's car, which is a 2001 Honda Accord. It's in the garage, downstairs. Why? Because I don't need a Mercedes or anything. I don't need all that. Because it's a 24/7 humility pill. God give it, he can take it away.
That's right.
So being amongst those who have $1 million, cool, that's great. I have an asset that's going to generate income for me and my legacy for the next 50 years. I'm good.
During those times where you found yourself working hard as hell, Antwon, how did you juggle family and business, man?
Communication. And communication is, hey, family, I need to be able to do A, B, C, D, F, G. But I also got to give you your time. So I redid my schedule to understand the peaks and valleys of family time. So one of the first things I had to do was get my health in order. Like I said, in 2012, I was doing there 400 pounds. Okay? So in order for me to lose weight and get my health in order, I had to first understand psychologically what was making me eat the way I was. What was causing me to have those habits? And what I realized was, looking at my past, I wanted a level of affirmation. And because I didn't have that level of affirmation, I seek a level of fulfillment. And the only way to get quick fulfillment was to feel full. So I ate until I felt full. And if I was going through something, I ate more. So I was always chasing that feeling of affirmation. So once I realized that's what it was like, okay, what habits do I need to put in place and what access do I need to have in order to now, be able to deal with my health? So I was able to invest in putting the gym in my basement, and I was able to finally convince myself to try an alternative way of eating, which was I did the keto for about a year. But the most important thing is, in order to get to your point of how do I deal with family, I rearranged my schedule. So Monday through Friday, I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Get up at 3, immediately put on my clothes, go down to the kitchen, get my pre-workout mix, go down to the basement, turn on the lights in the gym, put everything down, sit down and I pray, and I use the bathroom. What that does is it puts me in direct proximity to the gym. So whether I work out or not, I'm in proximity. So it's putting it on my mind. So I spend from 3 a.m. to 4:30 working out. Then from 4:30 to 5:30, I go back upstairs and I check emails, do work or whatever I need to do. At 5:30, I'm walking into my bedroom where my wife is there. I maybe spend time with her. So from 5:30 to 6:30, she has my undivided attention. From 6:30 to 7, whatever else needs to happen around the house, we need to talk about as far as business or whatever, we're able to do that. I'm downstairs by 7 o'clock. By 7:30, I'm on the road taking my son to school and whatever. Come in the evening, 6 o'clock, we're sitting there eating dinner. I'm in the bed by 8.
Okay.
So what that does is I've created a structure that my family can depend on. If I have to go out of town, I adjust, but then I go back to normal. Because your family wants to know, are you committed to them and what you have, or are you putting what you have in front of them? And the only way to do that is you have to have structure. As men, we have to have structure. And we have to understand what are the things that are going to block you from having that structure, and you had to attack it. I realized that I had to deal with my mental health, my need for fulfillment, transition that off, and put something in this place that I can hold on to. So from I think it's now been a year and a half, I've lost over 50 pounds. And I'm way more healthier, which means now I'm able to do more, be more active with my kids, with my wife, and I'm not being sluggish down.
As a Black entrepreneur, what were some of the obstacles that you faced that you think that all entrepreneurs have to face? And then also, when it came to dealing with big business at the same time, were the obstacles different the higher the dollar got?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. It depends on your industry. If you're in the world of entertainment in general, if you have the attention of consumers, you're able to skate through a lot of the institutional traps that are there. However, if you're in other industries, you're having to work twice, 10 times as hard as others because purely there's no representation that will give you the benefit of the doubt. So you're having to overcome those. In the telecom industry, we're it. There isn't any other Black-owned broadband utility company in the U.S. We're also a competitive local exchange carrier, which means we have been able to go through the vetting to be able to interconnect with companies like AT&T, CenturyLink, Lumen. Our networks are able to interconnect. Going through that process required you have to really know what you're doing and be actually smarter in many cases than the engineers of the billion-dollar companies, but still be humble enough to make them think that they're smarter than you in order to get through that minutia.
Yeah.
So we've had to do that, but because we were able to operate financially on bare means, we were able to sustain the timeline vetting that the big companies take you through. Hey, we're going to give you an opportunity, but it's going to take you about a year to get to it. And what happens is a lot of people think that, I can do business with you because I know somebody, not understanding that there's a whole ecosystems of contracts and bureaucracy that you have to get through to get from that introduction to an actual contract. And then once you got that contract, to get paid. Because a lot of time I got this contract, you may not get paid for 90 to 120 days. So how do you deal with mobilization, implementation, and being able to sustain that timeline to get paid? See, that's what a lot of entrepreneurs run out of business, run out of one way, because you don't fundamentally understand that all is not good because somebody said they're going to give you an opportunity. You have to understand that all the way through.
Exactly.
You have a lot of other people that goes into business thinking that, hey, if I have this product and service and I'm using someone else, I should be able to deliver, and not understand that they're undercutting you on the back end. They're using you as a front in order to open the door for them, and they move you out the way. You know, doing business is like being out in the street. It's cutthroat. And you have to be able to understand all the intricate dynamics at play. You have to, you know, be versed and understand legally, accounting, taxes, marketing, biz dev, flow through, operations. All of those things come into play. And all of that comes back to when I make the statement when I was at the small engineering firm, when I was at CH2M Hill, I would go in early to look at all of their stuff. You know, how did they do proposals? How did they deal with the accounting? You know, what are the notes of how they were, you know, dealing with marketing? What were some of the legal things? I would start mapping all that out and replicating. So if you looked at a proposal that A2D had and you compared that with CH2M Hill, it had the same font. It had the same style, because I wanted to look like $1 billion company, although it's just me. Because when you show up and you got the same level of impression, they're going to give you that extra little bit of, okay, let's see if you can get to the next step. And that's what we had to fine tune.
Your original vision for A2D, do you feel like you've reached it yet?
A2D is at the cusp of being the biggest yet unknown broadband company in the U.S. Okay? We have, what we're pushing forward is our e-community brand. E-community is what our investors and us, we did a joint venture to do. So we created a new company that will own the infrastructure, and that's the brand. A2D is the developer operator of that.
Okay.
So as a developer operator, we're able to create other types of verticals. We're able to partner with entrepreneurs. We're able to have our hands on a whole lot of other things.
Yeah.
And we're able to be in the background of a lot of innovation. So that's where A2D sits. E-community is being replicated in multiple locations. So we got E-community in Clayton County. We have E-community, we're getting ready to do something in Augusta. We got some stuff we're trying to do in Middle Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma. So it's being replicated in order to provide connectivity to underserved communities. You know, as an open access carrier, we don't sell internet to the home. We own the infrastructure to the home. We actually build down the street, come onto your property, and put a device in your home that's connected to our fiber. We're what we call open access, in that we're utility. We have other providers who connect to our network and compete to deliver internet to your home. So the homeowner would get a bill from, let's say, Connect Fast or Culture Wireless or WinSonic. These are our current providers here in Clayton County. They would pay them, but they would use our network. So if something happens, an e-community truck would go out and fix it. So we sit completely in the background. So look at us no different than that road. We're the road. Culture Wireless is FedEx. Connect Fast is UPS. WinSonic is the United States Postal Service. Neither one of them are building their own road. We have built the road that they can deliver on.
Okay, when you build a road that they can deliver on, Antwon, it makes me feel like, one, Black history has just occurred. Two, you're too smart for your own good. You see what I'm saying? Three, it's a lot of money tied into this. So break that down right there, because it's like, okay, this guy has the goose that's laying the golden eggs over here, and he's patented and trademarked e-community, and we can't do nothing with him. What is it like being in that position of power at the same time of, you know, isolation too?
Well, that's a big statement. Ooh, yeah. So the fundamentals are, I'm a simple guy that's trying to build infrastructure to give people what they need until they can afford what they want. And the investment community has realized that it's profitable now to decouple retail services from the infrastructure. And our motto is one of the first here in the U.S. to truly operate within that. So we're the test bed. Can you truly deploy an open access, carrier neutral network in America and replicate nationally? So in that, yes, we may be the golden goose, but it's fraught with a lot of challenges technically, legally, politically, financially, and the most difficult is getting the average consumer to understand its inherent value. You know, I'm taking e-community, which is based off of first hardship, understanding that people should have the right to access to information that they need. The internet is still considered a luxury, but all of what you need is only available a lot of time, you know, on the net, digitally. So if you want to do telehealth, you got to be able to have internet. You want to be able to do, you know, deal with your government agencies, you got to have internet. You want to look at YouTube, you got to have internet. All of these things you relies on someone bringing you a connection and you able to pay that money per month. There's a fundamental issue with that. So the way I created this model is I'm able to technically separate retail services from connectivity, which means, and this part of what I hope and vision is, start stimulating dialogue and partnerships with entrepreneurs, civic organizations, nonprofits to say, hey, when I separate this connection, how can I connect households who can't afford to pay for internet but still need access to healthcare, banking, education? We're able to establish that direct connection over our network to those specific websites, content, and so forth, without them having to cross the public internet. We're able to do that because we have a model that creates a financial benefit to them and us. So I have to straddle the fence between how do I meet the needs of the people while also meeting the expectations of our investors. And it all comes down to, like I said, trying to be a servant. You got to be able to meet those pieces. So as we deploy in Clayton County, we're specifically going into communities of color where the need is the greatest, and they have been left out.
So if I'm living in Clayton County and I wasn't able to afford to pay my Xfinity bill, how does e-community impact me?
Okay. So we get you connected. Let's say, like right now, we're getting ready to break ground in Riverdale and in Morrow. So we have two areas we're getting ready to break ground. The area in Riverdale starts at the intersection of Taylor Road and Highway 138. And it's about 1,400 households we're getting ready to build. So once our construction crews start going, we're going to start connecting homes that have signed up. Go to our website, ecommunityfiber.com, signed up with one of our providers. We're going to connect them, okay? So let's say you have a homeowner that's connected to our network. Once you're connected, you're paying one of our internet providers. If it comes to the point where you're unable to pay that internet provider, they will turn you off. However, we get in and say, okay, what connectivity do you need? I need to be able to communicate with the hospital because I have telehealth. I need my child to be able to still connect in with the school system. We're able to then partner with nonprofits and partner with those agencies, say, okay, how do we create a separation where they're able to still communicate with them? Now, you can't go to YouTube or go to Netflix, but you'll still be able to go to there. So we've created a framework in order to meet that need until you're able to afford that.
That's right.
So that's step one. Step two, we have multiple carriers, which means that you have multiple entities that's competing to provide you the services that you can afford. So you may not be able to afford gigabit internet for $65 a month. You may have to get that entry package at $10 a month. We have those options available to meet you where you are financially.
Okay.
Versus, hey, big cable, you got to get the triple play and pay 100 and whatever a month. You know, no, we're trying to meet your needs.
That's awesome right there, Antwon. Now, my other question is, outside of A2D, I know you get busy as well, man. So, I mean, what other businesses do you got your finger in, and what are you up to out here, man?
Okay. So, number one, I am on the board, and I'm an advisor for my cousin Derek's company, which is Big Dave's Cheesesteak. Mm-hmm. So, I came on helping them back in 2020, going into the pandemic, getting his company where it needed to be for enterprise growth. Mm-hmm. So really working with the other family members in order to get the enterprise ready. Mm-hmm. So dealing with investors, looking at operations, getting everything streamlined, transitioning from a sole proprietorship to a true enterprise. Mm-hmm. On Saturday, for example, we just opened up the third restaurant off of Jonesboro Road. And that was done. And, I'm a person from the background. Like, I told him, hey, look, I'm very active in what I do. Mm-hmm. So as, hours before we were opening, we had a group text. Yeah. And the president, Jesse, was like, hey, we tried to pressure wash the front porch out there where everybody's going to be sitting. The pressure washer went out. And I was like, cool, I have one. I showed up that morning and I'm pressure washing, the front porch hours before everybody got there because I knew a lot of people were going to be sitting there.
Exactly.
That's my level of involvement.
That's right.
With whoever I'm affiliated with. I'm going to put myself as a servant first to help out.
That's right.
So I've been helping Big Dave's on that side. My wife has a production company. She's doing small film. Mm-hmm. My daughter's doing podcasts. My other daughter, she's doing some things with nonprofit. My son has wrote a book. I'm helping wherever I can. I have several other entrepreneurs who lean to me. I give my time. Yeah. My goal is in order to help those be successful in whatever they're doing. Mm-hmm. By taking my talent, which I said is reverse engineering situation, to understand what is the path you need to go.
That's awesome right there. That is awesome. Well, Antwon, first of all, thank you so much. This has been an inspiring conversation for my damn self as well, okay? And I'm pretty sure everybody that watches this is going to be inspired to get up and get something, man.
Hey, yeah, I do appreciate it. I appreciate this opportunity. You've been pulling on me.
Yeah, I was like, you got to come down and tell this story, man, because at the end of the day, we need more Antwons out here. So when you say you're the only one out there, first of all, it's going to take somebody 20 years to do what you did, but my demographic is 25 to 54. So, I mean, somebody that's 20 years old is going to watch this and say, okay, by the time I get to 40, I'm going to be where Antwon's at now. And that's really the main thing that I wanted to inspire was the next generation to be able to go out there and do it and know that it can be done, because at the end of the day, it wasn't done until you did it.
True.
You see what I'm saying?
True, but now you don't have an excuse not to do it.
Exactly, but then on top of that, did you realize that you were blazing a trail during this whole time, or were you just, chasing the vision and the dream that you had?
I didn't realize the magnitude of what it could be. Uh-huh. But I knew I had something special.
Okay.
In the model. Mm-hmm. And the issue was, how do you get past or endure what you're going through until it's time for God to say, all right, now you can go. And that's the part that all entrepreneurs have to face.
Yeah.
There's an incubation period. And you got to be able to survive in that pressure cooker.
Come on now.
There's no quick fix. This is not microwave, business. Yeah. You can't fake your way through it. You can't get a bunch of followers on social media and think all of a sudden, no. Mm-mm. Like I told my daughters, like, hey, look, just because you are making some money on social media doesn't mean it's sustainable. You got to be able to look at, if I made $1 million, once that $1 million cut, I got to divide that times how many years I'm going to be alive. Exactly. So you got to know and plan according to that. That's the world of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. If you don't make it, that money get cut off.
Come on.
So if you know you got something, spend the time to make sure it's right.
That's right.
Because you don't get another shot at it.
Come on.
So I'm very careful in how I provide mentorship with people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to be as transparent as I can. I'm willing to tell my story, the ugly details and all, so that you don't go into entrepreneurship blind. You don't go into it with rose-colored glasses. You don't go into it thinking that, oh, I get to go from corporate America and now I'm making $1 million. No, it didn't work that way.
Yeah.
Are you willing to lose it all, have everybody look at you like you nothing? And then when you finally do get back at it, you don't turn to them and try to make them pay for it.
Yeah.
Because that's the fastest way you go back to where you were.
Right back to it.
That's the level of communication that I'm doing. How do you pay it forward? That's my ministry.
I'm with you. Lastly, Antwon, how can folks contact you if they need to holler at you after watching this interview? We just watched the interview again. That's the way you contact them.
So the best way to reach me, I would say the easiest way is going to be on social media.
Yeah.
Go to Instagram. My Instagram handle is my full name.
Okay.
At Antwon Alsobrook. ANTWONALSOBROOK.
That's right.
It is what it is. I'm an open book. So if you need to reach me, go through there. If they're affiliated with UBI, have you reach there.
Yeah.
And I have to be careful with who I engage because of what I do, but I'm still open.
Exactly. Antwon, appreciate you coming through this thing, man. Wish you nothing but the best and much success.
Absolutely.
Be High Radio, shout it. Antwon Alsobrook, holla at y'all in a minute, man. We gone.